Do you think that universities looked at your social media websites like Twitter and Facebook and Instagram when you were applying for undergraduate studies at the various schools that you applied to?
For undergrad, I'm not sure because I went to Boston University and it's a relatively large school, so I don't know if, they would have the resources to be able to investigate every applicant. I wouldn't be surprised necessarily, but I also don't think that they did.
Do you think that 4 years later, when you were applying for graduate school, that those universities looked at your social media websites and profiles?
Absolutely, for graduate school. I'm getting my doctorate in psychology, and I think for that field in particular, people want to know that they are accepting good applicants and they want to know everything about you and they want to make sure that the safety of people that we will potentially be working with is in the right hands. So I would not doubt for a second that my graduate school looked into my various social media profiles, especially like LinkedIn and things like that. But I would not be surprised at all if Facebook was investigated and maybe Twitter. I don't know.
Do you think that it is acceptable for universities, both undergraduate and graduate, to look at incoming freshmen social media profiles and websites? Why or why not?
So I think for undergraduate schools to look into social media profiles, I don't necessarily think that that is appropriate. Only because college is a time that you really kind of discover yourself, and so I think it would be um, kind of unfair for universities or institutions to investigate people who aren't even really, fully themselves, if that makes sense. So for undergraduate, no, I don't think it's appropriate, and I don't think it would do anything for either party. However, for graduate school, I think that I can understand why institutions would want to look into their applicants to see if there's anything, I guess, fishy about people that they're going to be accepting into their institution to represent their school and their name and all of that stuff. So I think for graduate school, I think it's a little bit more acceptable. I do still think it's somewhat of an invasion of privacy, but it's social media, it's a public profile. So it's more acceptable for graduate studies than it is for undergraduate.
What advice would you give potential applicants to universities about their social media profiles and websites?
Advice. I mean, I tend to live by the motto everything in moderation. So, I mean, you obviously it's your own personal profile that you have on these various, social media avenues, but at the same time, I think it does make an impression if you have entire albums of getting wasted on Saturday, and find that it is a public profile. Once it's out on the internet, it's always out there. So keeping everything in moderation, I think, is okay. You want to make it look like you're a normal person, but at the same time, you don't want to look like this crazy partier or someone in a different direction. I think social media is it's interesting because it can really help you in certain ways, but then it can also really harm you, especially in terms of like statuses and pictures. You want to just keep in mind what you put out there and maybe double check if you need to make it a status or a picture or anything like that, just because once it's out there, it's out there. So, and just keep that in mind that it's a public profile, so it's not just your friends that are viewing your profile, especially for things like LinkedIn. Pretty much anyone can find you on LinkedIn and see what you have out there. So I think just being mindful of what you put on your profile, I think it says a lot about someone. even in terms of like how you phrase things and things like that. But like I said, I think it can be really beneficial. It can really help you out in terms of networking and I guess branding. So just be mindful.